Here's how billionaires make their money. Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and if you're new here, welcome. My name is Spencer Van, and yes, today I'm going to be talking about the financial model, so to speak. That sounds like really boring, but it is true, the financial model that billionaires and very wealthy people use to make money. Now, you're probably saying, Spencer, how do you know this? You're not a billionaire. Well, that is correct. I am not a billionaire, but I have actual friends that are maybe not billionaires, but worth hundreds of millions. I have several that are worth hundreds of millions, and I actually have met a couple billionaires in my life, so to speak. So I'll be talking about some of the things I picked up from just conversations with them, and it's actually a really simple concept, which is pretty awesome. So we'll be talking about that today. Now, if you guys enjoyed this video, drop a like, leave a comment down below if you're already using this strategy. Of course, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell, because once per month we do a live stream where we give away free mini courses, and you want to get notified when we go live so you can potentially win one of those. But with that being said, let's jump right into today's topic, which is what is the #1 strategy that I see very successful people use over and over again, where you're not leaving your success to chance. You know, if you look at a lot of the billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, you're probably saying, well, what do they all have in common? Well, they're all like computer nerds, okay? They're all geniuses, and they all built something that's completely revolutionary and changed the world. And of course, if you do that, you know, it's going to improve your odds of being a billionaire. But there is a tried and true method, not of being a billionaire, not even of being a millionaire, but of generating wealth. I'm not guaranteeing you any results, okay? I'm just a rambling baboon, okay? You know, this is a tried and true financial model that I've seen used over and over again that generates, you know, literally every single year billions of dollars for people. So this is how it works, okay? There is 4 ways to make money. In fact, this concept, part of this concept, which I'm about to explain, comes from Robert Kiyosaki. Okay, Robert Kiyosaki is a very famous real estate investor, very famous author, and mentor, so to speak, to people. And he became famous when he wrote a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I highly recommend all of you guys read and/or listen to. If there's an audiobook version, I'm not sure, as soon as possible. It is an amazing book. It's a great foundational book for making money. Okay. But in that book and in his later books, he talks about what's called the cash flow quadrant. And there's 4 different parts of the quadrant. So you figure a quadrant looks like this, right? There's 4 different boxes, right, on each side. And on the left side, on each side, there's a different way to make money, okay? There's the left side and there's the right side, okay? Starting with the top left, you have being an employee. Now this is pretty obvious, right? Being an employee, you sell your time, and in return for selling your time, your employer pays you a certain amount of money per hour, right? Or per the amount of time that you put into it, okay? Now, under being an employee is the S quadrant, which is being self-employed, right? Now, a lot of people think that this is like, oh, I want to be self-employed, I want to be my own boss, da-da-da-da-da. This is not where you want to be, okay? In my opinion, being self-employed is the worst out of all 4 boxes, because the reality is you're still selling your time. And the reason why I say that is because think about it. Let's say, you run your own business. It's a one man or one woman show. And let's say that business is surplus funds and you're self-employed, right? Well, if you're self-employed, that means you don't have any people working for you. You don't have any systems. You are still selling your time, because if you're cold calling, this is a great example of being self-employed and surplus funds. You're cold calling, right? Well, let's say, hey, you know what? We've done really well. I want to go on vacation, okay? Well, what happens when you go on vacation? You don't make any money. You stop making any money. As soon as you stop working, you stop making any money. That is a tried and true method to tell if you are in the S quadrant. So even though you're your own boss, you're still in a way selling your time for money. And on top of that, there's no unemployment if things go south. You don't have a retirement plan already set up for you. You have to do that yourself, right? Your taxes are a little bit more complicated, although you can get some tax write-offs. And as if all of that was not worse or bad enough, the worst part is there's absolutely really hard glass ceiling of an upside, okay? Now that is a little bit higher than the E quadrant, okay? Where an employee, you're only gonna go so far in any particular job. But with an S, you can go a little bit higher typically, but there still is a hard ceiling because you're selling your time for money. And that's the problem with the left side of the graph, or the left side of the chart, okay? So you got the E quadrant, and then under that you've got the S quadrant, okay? Now on the top right corner, you've got the B quadrant. Okay, now the B quadrant stands for big business. And I know that's like, whoa, big business. I'm not a Fortune 500 company. That's not what it means. Okay, how you go from the S quadrant to the B quadrant is, instead of doing everything yourself and selling your time for money, you do one of two things, or more than likely both of them. Okay, the first thing is you hire people to work for you. You hire employees, you build a team. And now, whether you're working or not, that team is still working. That team is still producing, right? And the other side of basically doing the same thing is installing, software automations and stuff like that, to where, again, you're not selling your time for money. Really, the key here is you're not selling your time for money. You're building systems and processes that generate that money automatically without you having to necessarily be directly involved with it. And I want to key in on this point, because when you're first starting out in entrepreneurship, most people, they start out as an employee, and then they realize, hey, this whole 9-to-5 thing is just not for me. Okay, this is not for me. And so they go online, they learn about these different business models like surplus funds or wholesaling or Amazon FBA or whatever any of these business models are, and they go from the E quadrant to the S quadrant. And now they're not necessarily, working for a boss, but they're their own boss. And a lot of people get stuck there. In fact, I would say most people get stuck there. It's not really a great place to get stuck. And so what holds them back is they're not thinking like a business owner. In order to become a business owner, you really have to think like a business owner first. And thinking like a business owner, what that means is, instead of trying to say, oh, well, how many hours will it take for me to get to X amount of money? Instead of saying that to yourself, you have to say, well, what systems and processes do I need to build so that I can generate X amount of money, right? It's just a different question, right? A great way to challenge yourself in thinking like this, let's say it was January 1st and I pulled you inside of a room and I said, listen, you have 1 year to make $1 million, okay? And if you don't make the $1 million, something really bad is going to happen, okay? And, you would find a way to earn $1 million. You'd go around, you would, I don't know what you would do, but you'd find a way, okay? You'd maybe take up like 4 jobs, you would do whatever it took, right? But if I pulled you in that room and I said, hey, you have 1 year to make $10 million, there's no conceivable way that you're going to be able to sell your time for $10 million in 1 year, right? Most people can't do that, okay? Unless you're already a high-up CEO or something and doing consulting for like 50 grand an hour. But most people, they're just not at that level, right? So with the average person, now they're not thinking about selling their time, right, as they were at $1 million. Now they're like, oh crap, I got to make 10 million. So now they're like, there's no way I can sell my time for this. I got to find a different way, right? And that's really the identity shift that you have to go through in order to become a business owner. Going into the strategy of what really, really wealthy people do with their money that's genius, okay, is what they do is they build companies in the B quadrant, right? So they'll build these massive companies, right? Amazon, for example, that prints out $100 billion in revenue a year, or probably more than that, probably much more than that, right? Walmart does like $400 billion a year, right? Google does like $100 billion a year. Facebook, $80 billion a year, like these massive companies. And, they're largely ran at that point without their involvement, okay? And even on a lower scale, for example, my buddy Alex Becker, okay? Well, Alex Becker, his company, I'm not going to reveal his numbers, but they're in the millions per month, okay? And doing very, very, very well for himself, obviously. But what he does, and this is the best part of this, is he lives on less than he earns. I know that's a tried and true principle. And obviously it's easy when you're making $1 million a month to do that. But he lives very inexpensively. He lives on like maybe 10 grand a month. So he's bringing in, in profit, probably just under $1 million a month, right, in profit into his bank account. And then he spends $10,000 to live, and so now he's at $990,000, right? And what does he do with that $990,000? Well, he takes that money he made from the B quadrant, right, on this side, on the top right, and he puts it into the bottom right, which is the I quadrant. And that stands for investor, right? And that's where you have a little bit of money and you multiply it into more money. And so, for example, what Becker did is, he sold his house for like $3 million last year and put it all into Bitcoin when it was between $5,000 and $8,000. Well, now it's $60,000 of Bitcoin, right? And he sold it, he sold it at like 40. But still, he like 8x'd his investment on $2 million. Well, you can do the math on that. That's kind of a lot of money, right? So the point is, there's a lot of money to be made when you're in the B quadrant, and you can transfer all that profit over into the I quadrant and boom, start reinvesting it to really multiply your money. And that's where true wealth is created. In Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki says, let's say you want a Porsche. I think he uses the exact example of a Porsche. He says, let's say you want a Porsche, and the Porsche is $1,000, $2,000 a month. Well, if you build a business that's making $10,000 a month, you don't take that money out and put it into the Porsche. You take the $10,000 out, put it into investments, and so that your passive income, okay, or your investment income will pay for the Porsche. And that's really the key, all right? Because that's, again, that's how you multiply your money. If every time you generated $10 here, you could turn it into 100, you'd be really stupid to take any money out of that, right? So that's the overall strategy, guys. Again, those 4 quadrants. If you guys want to look this up, it's called the cash flow quadrant. You can actually see a chart of it on Google. And I really recommend you guys all read this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. It really was very impactful to me and to millions of other people, I'm sure. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. Again, there's 4 quadrants. There's the employee quadrant, which is the top left. Under that, there's the S quadrant, self-employed. Okay, you don't really want to be on this side. There's nothing wrong. Maybe you're really happy being an employee. You probably wouldn't be watching this video, but maybe you're happy there. Maybe you're okay. But if you want true financial freedom, it's not attained on this side. It's attained on the right side, which is the B quadrant, and then under that is the I quadrant. So hopefully that makes sense. If you guys enjoyed this video, like the video and drop a comment down below with your thoughts. And of course, hit the subscribe button and the notification bell. As I mentioned earlier, we do those live stream mini course giveaways. You want to be notified when we do that. And with that being said, I will see you on the next video.